So welcome to Karuna Training Ask event. We are offering this opportunity to talk about some of the logistics of the upcoming basic training cohort and its related programs, and also a chance for you to be able to ask questions if you have them, and also for us to share some stories. Because really what I think helps people, what we think helps people connect with Karuna the most is not the basic ideas, but the human stories, our experiences. So I'm going to start us off with a bit of introductory material, and then Naoko is going to lead us through a practice, and then she'll let you know about what else is coming on this call. My name is Miriam. I use she, her pronouns. And I am in Madison, Wisconsin, which is the colonial name for Techope, Ho-Chunk lands. And just really feeling very connected to both the water and the earth today. I just got back from a trip to a local lake, borrowing a house from someone, and feeling really appreciative of the land and aware also of all the pain that has happened here in the settling of this land by white folks. So just naming the both and of that. Karuna training is a contemplative psychology training that was developed by Melissa Moore and colleagues when she moved to Europe about 30 years ago, so that they could take the teachings out of Naropa University and the masters in psychology, transpersonal psychology there. They wanted to take out the teachings and the practices that would best support lay people who weren't academics or necessarily even practitioners or clinicians of psychology. And so they did it in many countries in Europe, still do it in Europe for many decades. And then about 10 years ago, Melissa came back to North America and was encouraged, pleaded, supported in redeveloping it here in North America. And it's very exciting and always under development and growth. We've been doing a lot of work in recent years to really understand how to be both in this kind of pandemic hybrid world, and also how to make sure that we're more collectively sharing the wisdom with each other and leaning into each other, not have it be so centralized. So we're in a big growth period in Karuna. This offering today, as I just mentioned before, is an informational offering, both logistical information, stories, and then also a chance to ask questions. So we invite you to just relax. Here, we're going to alternate stories and logistics, and then you'll have a chance at the end to ask questions. However, if at any point when we're talking, you want to ask a question, please just let us know. You could put something in the chat. We'll keep an eye on the chat. Or you can raise your hand so we can see you and call on you to ask a question. So I'll pass it over to my colleague, Naoko Kojima.
Thank you, Miriam, and good to see everyone here. So we're going to begin with a short Karuna practice. I think it's safe to say that the recent events in our country and the world has kind of put us all on edge, generating lots of anxiety and fear among many of us. And one of the things we learn in Karuna is how to work with our emotions. And we really learn how to stay connected to our hearts, even in these very challenging times. So we're going to do a practice called the 4 steps. And the purpose of this practice is to learn to relax and stay with difficult or painful emotions. And the idea is that we're able to stay with our emotions, even the so-called negative ones. We learn that there's inherent wisdom and intelligence of that emotion that can really come through. So we do this with an overall attitude of not trying to change or struggle with the emotions, but really learning to be with the emotions through the sensations of the body. So we connect with the emotional energy by connecting to our bodies. So I'm going to walk you through this practice. So I'm going to begin by taking our seat and taking a good posture. You may want to close your eyes for this and really feel your physicality in this moment, how you're physically present. So sitting in a chair, bringing attention to parts of your body that is touching the chair and the floor. So beneath your thighs, the soles of your feet. Feel the physical weight of gravity. So the weight on the chair or cushion. And whatever emotion is arising in this moment, we're just going to refrain from doing anything with it. We're not going to try to express it or repress it or even think about it. I'm going to invite you to take a deep breath and drop out of your head into the body. And noticing any sensation wherever it is in the body, allowing it to be there, just acknowledging it. Whether that feeling in the body is uncomfortable or relaxing, it really doesn't matter. You're simply interested in the feeling in the body, the sensations. If you're not able to feel anything in the body, you could just lean into that, the numbness. That's okay too. There's no need to judge or comment on it. We're just noticing and bringing awareness. And once you've identified the feelings in your body, next we're going to explore the sensations or the quality of the feelings. So you may feel some tightness in the chest, or some fluttering in your stomach. Whatever the sensation you're feeling in any part of your body, allow it to be and try to see what the quality of that sensation is. Does it feel big or small? Is there a sharpness to it, or is it soft? Does it feel heavy or light? Does the body feel cool or hot? Is there a color to it, perhaps? Is there a shape? Is there a movement? What is the energetic quality? Are there any images that might come up? And just really going through the senses and feeling how the emotional experience manifests in the body. There's a whole spectrum of experience. So we're just being curious, just exploring. If you feel any aches or pain in any part of the body, just acknowledge that. We're not trying to change anything. And the third step is to embrace the sensations. So we're going to do this by bringing that sensation that you've identified closer to you. Really feel into that sensation. Welcome whatever the feeling is in the body, touching into it, holding the sensation closer to us. So what we typically do when we have these emotions and feelings is to try to push away the feelings we don't want or fight the sensation, which often makes things worse. So here in this practice, we're actually welcoming whatever the sensation we're feeling in the body, without any judgment and with a sense of warmth and friendliness. And we're just kind of allowing the sensation to just be, bringing the totality of the emotional experience closer to you, as if these sensations are melting into you. And now for the last step, after we've fully touched into the sensations, I'm going to let that go very gently. So the fourth step is to let the whole process dissolve. If you've been holding the sensation closer to you, you can loosen that, let it unravel, and let go. And sometimes this happens naturally by acknowledging and feeling into the sensations that can liberate the energy of the emotion naturally without you having to let go of it. So just see where you are at and just relax, let it go, letting things dissolve. And as we come to a close, let's take a deep breath and let go of the sensation as you breathe out. And you can slowly open your eyes. Take a moment to see where you're at in the room. And noticing what you're experiencing right now after you've done the practice. Thank you. And so that was the 4-step practice. And now we're going to introduce ourselves, go over the program, and each one of us here will share how Karuna has affected our lives. So as we go through the information, we'll kind of weave in our personal stories, and then we'll also have time for Q&A at the end. So the faculty will introduce themselves. I'm going to go first. So I'm Naoko. I was part of the first cycle of Karuna training in North America in 2014, where I met Miriam. And we've been on the Karuna journey as participants, as facilitators for other cycles, and now as faculty. So I'll turn it over to you, Miriam.
Thank you, Naoko. As Naoko mentioned, I'm on the lead faculty for Karuna training, and with Naoko, actually, we'll be on the faculty for this cohort as well, this cycle. As I mentioned before, I live on Ho-Chunk land, otherwise known as Madison, Wisconsin, and I've been in Karuna for 11 years. I thought it was 10 years. I lost track of a year, so 11 years. I'll pass it to Aina.
Hello, I'm Aina. I live in Baltimore, Maryland, and I started Karuna training in 2019 and then went straight on and did the graduate program. And just after that was kind of continuity faculty, supporting faculty for the graduate program that just finished. And I'll pass it to Del.
Hello, I'm Del. I live in Mesa, Arizona, and I'm on the ancestral lands of the Hohokam and the Pipash. I have been with I started Karuna in 2018 and then completed the graduate program in 22. And I will be part of the basic Karuna cohort that's about to start. So
Lovely. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to give you kind of a sense of the program in terms of what you take away, the main things that we've experienced in ourselves and others taking away from the program. Naoko will talk about some of the logistics later in terms of certificate and hours and things. This emphasizes a lot what Naoko was doing in the 4-step practice, which was, as Naoko said, one of the core aspects of Karuna is actually working with the energy of emotions. And Karuna means compassion, Sanskrit for compassion. So the core of our teachings and the core of the practices come down to compassion practices. And what's often the case is that there's a lot of intelligence in our emotions. There's a lot of wisdom there. But we will dismiss them because we're uncomfortable with what we're feeling. We don't think that we should feel them, or we might be scared of what we're feeling. So being able to be with the practice that Naoko introduced in many other practices, some of them individual and some collective, not just being with, going beyond being with emotions and into actually finding their intelligence, finding their wisdom, which really helps us to be smarter and stronger and more present with other people's emotions as well. Out of that arises skillful means in communication. A lot of people say that that's one of the most powerful things that they take from Karuna training is that they become better communicators, clearer about what they're trying to express, more precise, gentler. And then thirdly, really crucially, all of our practices around emotion and communication are body-centered. And what we mean by that is embodiment practice. So as Naoko was leading us through the 4-step practice, feeling how emotions and other energies show up in our bodies, knowing that a lot of us have traumatic experiences in our bodies, or dissociation. So working through that together and individually so that we're able to harness that wisdom that appears energetically in our bodies as emotions, and also find ways to more skillfully communicate, especially when we're in highly emotional states. And a lot of that is grounded in being in our bodies. So that's a bit of a sense of the highlights of what people mention, what they really take away from Karuna. And we'll have our first personal story. We'll go to Dell to tell us a little bit about their experience of Karuna.
So just a little more background on me. I work in corporate healthcare. I do data analytics for healthcare programs to identify programs that are succeeding or need help, and how best we can help the people that are involved in those healthcare programs. I've done that for about 15 years. And before that, I was in blood banking industry and did that for about 16 years. So long time in healthcare.
So clearly you're really interested in health.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I knew from a young age I wanted to help people, and it just seemed really, and I love sciences, so it just really fell into going down the healthcare track and finding my way. Yeah, it's just I think it's the only industry I really would want to be a part of at this point, but it is changing. It's definitely changing.
How is it changing? Like, how is that? Are you still able to help people and be curious about science and all of the things?
When I was in blood banking, I did have more direct contact with people one-on-one. And then moving into the data analytics role, I'm on the outside looking in, but so I don't have that personal interaction with individuals any longer. And that was okay in the beginning because I still saw a real high focus on helping people. That was the focus of the program. How best can we help them? How do we help them get past their barriers and challenges? And healthcare has changed over the last 4 or 5 years drastically towards the corporate focus of how do we make this more, the faster, better, cheaper route, essentially. And that just, I have no appetite to do that at all.
It
So
sounds almost like an oxymoron of corporate and healthcare.
mhm.
How do you reconcile that?
Yeah, that's been really hard for me to reconcile, definitely. And in that, I started meditating about 15 years ago and was also studying Buddhism. And with that, the idea was to help myself, because working in the corporate world, do it better, faster. I had this racing mind, and it was always just, never enough. And so even in trying to sleep, I was just racing mind all the time, and anxiety and all those things. And so meditation, my goal with, or hope with meditation was, can I at least sit in a little more quiet and find some space for me?
Yeah, and is that what led you to Karuna?
It actually was, yeah. And then through that, I found Karuna, and what Karuna helped me to do was to take the experience and the understanding of meditation, but embody it, to be able to really take and apply what I was learning in meditation, but off the cushion, as we say it, right? Like, how can I take that peace and calm or understanding of what's happening in my body and my mind when I'm meditating, but have that awareness while I'm out in my life and my day and working with my team and my family. And that really helped me to sort through my confusion, helped me to find skillful means to be able to, when I was feeling that raciness, settle down and interact with the people. And that changed for me a lot too. That I lead a team of people, and corporate America is so aggressive in how they manage. And I took a different route, and I started with kindness and compassion and openness and speaking. And it took a little time for my team to trust me, to trust the process. But now the communication is so clear and so high. We can bring anything to the table. And even when it's challenging, we can pause and take that time to be with it, and then start to dissect back to, where is this coming from? What can we do to alleviate it? I really do put people above the work we do, because without that, if they can't bring their best selves to work, I just don't feel that they can do their best work. And it's reflected back in so much of what we accomplish and all the things that they do to evaluate our team. So, and I attribute that to Karuna. If I hadn't learned how to understand myself, I don't know that I would have been able to really get to that point of being able to manage others and feel what's happening in the room and create a safe space for them.
Thanks for linking it back to your work. That's really powerful, Del. So are you going to stay in that world? I mean, it sounds like you've been able to make some good progress in terms of incorporating it.
I have made really good progress, but no, when I was in the graduate program, it just really struck me how much I miss working one-on-one with people, because we get to do that so much in Karuna. And I loved that, connecting with others and sharing experiences. And so while in the graduate program, I enrolled in a master's program for social work. And so I'll be moving into social work in probably towards the end of this year, early next year.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Del. Your story really highlights both the profound impact of Karuna in your personal life, but then also your professional life, and the amount of significant personal growth and even a new career path, which is certainly not everybody who does Karuna decides that they then need to do a master's in social work, but it's not unusual for people to either be incorporating it into their careers or actually realize that they want to head a different direction in their lives. Yeah, I'm going to pass it to Naoko, who will talk about the schedule of the basic training.
Thank you. So I'm going to talk about the schedule in terms of the structure. So the program is a mix of in-person retreats, online courses, and continuity groups in between the retreats and the courses. So basic training is a 2-year program. It's offered in 2 phases. So phase 1 is 9 months. It starts from May this year to January of next year. It starts with a 1-week residential retreat that's coming up on May 31st. And there's 2 online courses. They meet monthly on the 3rd Saturday of the month for 3 hours. And phase 2 is a 1-year program, and it starts from May of 2026 to May of 2027. And it also begins with a 1-week residential retreat, 2 online courses, and ends with a 1-week residential retreat. So you have these 2 online courses in between 2 in-person retreats. And phase 2 also includes 1 mentored community project. This is where you get to apply the Karuna practices out in the world. So Miriam might talk more about that, but one of the 2 online courses meets every other week, and the other one meets on a monthly basis, similar to phase 1. And in phase 1, we'll go through the foundations of Karuna training, and in phase 2, we'll be going deeper. And throughout the program, you will be invited to connect with the faculty and with the cohort in different ways. So you'll have a 1-to-1 mentoring session with the faculty, as well as meeting monthly with a small group. And this small group is like a micro community of the whole. And this is a way to help create continuity between sort of the larger cohort gatherings. And we're also opening up some of the basic training coursework to newcomers and alumni. This is kind of a new thing that we're trying out. So the online courses are also going to be open to those not taking the full program. And this is really to give participants some options, make Karuna more accessible. And also, we're a relatively small cohort. So, for example, having alumni join us kind of builds community and connections. And those taking the full program, that will stay intact in terms of continuity groups and mentoring. So, there will be some distinction between those taking the full program and those just taking the online courses. Back to you, Miriam.
Great. Thank you, Naoko. And I'm just going to put in the chat on our website. You can find information on all the information that Naoko was saying, the logistical information. We wanted to make sure that you have a chance to hear it as well. That those details and those overviews are also on the website. Naoko, I'd love to hear more about your story. What brought you to Karuna, and how it's impacted you, what you brought from it.
So I didn't mention this in my intro, but I live in New York City and I work in banking. So I do a lot of pitching for deals, negotiating terms with clients. It's very analytical. I happened to be talking to several of my colleagues during a work event, and one of them mentioned how I have great observations and I provide really good insights when dealing with our clients. And then another colleague just jumped in there and asked me, well, how do you do that? That's really great. And I was actually surprised at that comment. And I kind of had to think whether that was even true, because I didn't really notice that myself. But after some time, I realized that this was the result of my training in compassionate exchange. And compassionate exchange is one of the core practices of Karuna.
Absolutely. And I'm just again struck by this corporate theme, like that you and Dell both bringing this into corporate world and getting the feedback, right, from Dell's team and from people you've engaged with. It's really potent. Compassionate exchange. It's one of those things we talk about in Karuna. Can you say more about what that actually means?
Yeah. So in simple terms, compassionate exchange is the direct experience. And Melissa, who founded the Karuna training, describes compassionate exchange as our capacity to feel others' emotions directly and inseparably through direct contact in the present moment.
Naoko, can you say a little more about direct experience?
Sure, yeah. So direct experience is that open, non-judgmental, unfiltered experience, right? Without the add-ons. So whether we're talking to our boss, our partner, our friends, we're constantly picking up feelings of others from certain body movements, the energetic quality in the environment, the look on their face. And what we typically do when we pick up on those things is to add our projections, right? We attach certain meaning, we attach certain expectations, we bring in all of our biases, our preconceived notions, and all our filters in. And compassionate exchange has taught me how to really listen to what people are saying, not just from their words, but from their whole being, without my biased interpretation.
That's great. Can you give an example of one way that you do that?
Sure. So one way is to simply pay attention to the kind of moment-to-moment direct and immediate experience of our felt sense in the body. Remember how Karuna is very embodied, the practice that we do. So it's like, how are we feeling in your body and what we're noticing in our awareness? And we kind of got a taste of that today with the 4-step practice. But you also notice how there's a constant interchange with the other person and with the environment that's going on. So there's sensory awareness that's picking up the energetic qualities all the time. And there's this oscillation happening between self and others as we touch into the other's experience very fully and completely. And we let go to come back home to ourselves, just like we did in the 4-step practice, right? We fully experience it, but we don't hold on to it or add our interpretations. We let go and come back, feel our bodies again. There's this exchange happening all the time, whether we're aware of this or not. And Karuna has really taught me how to tune into that moment-to-moment experience that's happening.
Thank you so much, Naoko. That I'm so struck by how I was saying earlier, right? The embodiment and skillful means in communication and also working with the energy of emotion really showed up in what you were describing about compassion exchange, and how wow, just how helpful it is to actually have something like that named, that's not normally named, right? Like, as you were saying, that energy is there all the time. We're just not normally recognizing it or acknowledging it or working with it. And in fact, compassion exchange is so central to Karuna's teachings that once we start to tune into it, it becomes a part of the 4-step practice that Naoko led, but also group sharing called Speaking from the Heart that we do as well. Body, speech, and mind practice, working with the Buddha families. All of the other practices we do are really based in some ways in the basic concept and experience of compassion exchange. Thank you so much for that, Naoko. I'm going to say a few words about community. So community is one of those aspects of Karuna that is really core, an essential aspect of Karuna. We talked about personal practice, but also, as Naoko was saying just now, this practice of kind of tuning into ourselves and then to others is really essential. And that's especially as faculty, but even as a participant, I found it's so much more challenging to work with others than just myself. Sometimes it's really challenging to work with just myself too, but it's really challenging to engage with others at times. And at the same time, we can go so much further together, and we do go so much further together. So both of those things can be true. It can be intimidating to do group practices, and we actually really get free in bigger ways, individually and collectively. So as Naoko kind of hinted at, we have a few different levels of gatherings and also of connection and community. So starting with always encouraging everyone to have a study buddy, and having one-on-one mentoring, and then having this continuity group, the smaller continuity group, which is that small ongoing group that Naoko was talking about. Karuna also, for in-between programs, uses a social media app, kind of a private social media app called Circle. And it's not required, but it's super helpful, so that when you're working through readings, or you're trying to understand an experience that you had, or you want to ask questions or offer reflections, Circle can be a great place to post those things. And just recognizing we had someone new come in, you're welcome. We welcome here. So glad you're here. You can totally stay off camera. And to name that we are alternating logistical information with stories, and we'll have a chance for question and answer at the end. And to name that we're recording. I imagine it asked your permission. But if you want to speak, just your voice will show up, not your image, or you can add something in the chat if you have any questions. So speaking of community building and connection, Ina, I'd love to hear more about your story. I've always had a sense from you that seeking community was part of what you were looking for coming into Karuna.
Hi, yeah, Miriam. Yeah, so I'd been a meditator for years, and I was a single mom. I had my boys. I still have 2 boys. They're not as young as they were then. And I had moved to Baltimore. I was a nurse working in the pediatric intensive care unit, and I'm not from the States. I was new to Baltimore. It was just a really like overwhelming, intense time in my life. And I was really drawn to Karuna because I felt like I needed a supportive community. And I'd done a couple of intros and was kind of attracted to this radical honesty aspect of the community. Yeah, and then one of the things I found as I was doing Karuna is that it grew my intensity capacity to be with intense sensations and emotions.
Mm. Okay, I have questions, but I'm going to start with just one. Can you say more about radical honesty?
Yeah, so in Karuna, there's a fostering of engagement, of speaking from what is arising in the moment and not the story. Like typically, my experience, like of the growth I've got from Karuna, is getting more understanding that often when I'm communicating about a relationship or a situation, I'm communicating from the story, and Karuna really encourages us to come back and be in the moment and um, of the situation. And this kind of makes space to speak honestly from a place that is tender and kind. So, say we're talking about something that happens in the past, we're talking about that, but we're grounding it in what is coming up for us in the moment. And this creates a kind of magic which allows that honesty to blossom. And oftentimes we're talking about things that are deeply personal, interrelational in the group or with another person. And it's just kind of surprising. Like sometimes I'm having a conversation with someone and I'm listening to them and I'm thinking about what I'm going to say based on the story. And when I drop into what's happening into my body, something different happens and it just opens the experience up and really creates this spacious relationship that is just the most profound and very supportive.
Ina, can you say a little bit more about intensity capacity and what that is for you?
Yeah, it's the ability to be with and acknowledge like the difficult sensations and feelings and emotions that come up. And we've talked about it in terms of like the 4-step and meditation. And these are really practices that we do that foster this cultivating this ability. And it's really a cultivation. And really, as Naoko has said, it's like based, and Miriam also, based on the acknowledgement that being embodied in the moment, like often that brings up intense sensations. And we're developing the ability to warm to these. And this allows for transformation to happen, and it creates a capacity that builds our resilience in a tender-hearted way. And really acknowledging this and working with this capacity has helped me move away from the subconscious like belief that for my life to be good, everything has to feel good. And it certainly is not the way my life has felt. And so I think it's really helped me be kind of a more present parent, and a nurse may help me be there for my patients in a way that is just kind of, I think Dell has spoken to that and Naoko has spoken to that. I currently work like with families one-to-one, and so many times my patients just kind of acknowledge my ability to kind of be with them in very difficult situations. And then the other thing that I feel like Karuna kind of, has given, like what grows out of Karuna is this belief that we all have our intrinsic health. So where one big takeaway was that we don't try and fix others, but by witnessing and being in compassionate exchange, like we all kind of gain this deep access to intrinsic health, which is very radical and empowering.
Oh, thanks, Naoko. I'm feeling radically empowered right now as you're talking. I'm like, oh yeah, we do those things. That's so powerful. Appreciate that. And especially just acknowledging difficult feelings and being with difficult feelings and how that builds resilience and intrinsic health when we can really practice and build our capacity for that. I think I can say that all four of us are part of Karuna because of supportive community that's based in radical honesty, and that can be kind of a rare thing to find nowadays. It's really important to remember that precious jewel. We are kind of winding down to the end of our offerings, so Naoko is gonna bring in a bit more about what the certificate of completion is and the application process and tuition. And then I'll share a story and then we'll have a chance for Q&As.
Thank you. So to complete the Karuna training and receive a 262-hour certificate in contemplative psychology, you do need to attend 75% of the training, and that includes the in-person retreats, all the online coursework, and your assigned continuity groups. And we take attendance every course, and we'll be letting you know if you're getting close to like 20% of missed attendance. So we'll help you achieve the completion. And as I mentioned, there are 3 residential retreats and online courses that occur mostly on the 3rd Saturday of the month, and those meet for 3 hours. And you're also assigned a continuity group that is more or less regional for time zones, and those are practice and study labs for Karuna methods. And also there is a 25-hour project that's based in compassionate exchange in the community. But these are projects that are very much tailored to your life and what you're doing. So it's not like, don't think of it as like this grand project they have to start from scratch. This is really about bringing Karuna into your life. And there's only 5 hours of service that's required to complete this project. And to receive a certificate, we do require that you're paid up in full, and we do take payment plans as well. And in terms of the application process, there are 4 key pieces to this. So the first is the online application. We strongly recommend that you consider applying as soon as possible if you haven't already, but before April 30, so we can avoid rushing through the process. And once we receive your application, we're going to contact you to schedule an interview with a Karuna faculty. And this is really more for us to get to know you better and to hear from you what you're looking for in this program and answer any questions and explore whether this is the right training for you. And once your application is accepted, we'll send you a contract to be signed. And this makes it official. And then the last step is the tuition payment. And the first payment will be due before a residential retreat. And so just to go over the cost, the tuition for phase 1 is $2,500. Phase 2 is $4,500. The room and board cost for the residential program is separate. And if you are interested in getting CEUs, there are 95 CEUs for the basic training. So 33 CEUs for phase 1 and 62 for phase 2. And there's an additional $150 cost for the CEUs for the entire program. So last, we'll go to Miriam. When I came to Karuna, I really didn't know much about the training, but I think, Miriam, you were drawn to a very specific practice of Karuna. Is that correct?
Yeah. I had been practicing and teaching various forms of meditation and Buddhism for about 10 years when I came to Karuna. I've been teaching now for about 20 years. And I teach writing and meditation and photography and meditation. So I was already on kind of an alternative path to begin with. Like I don't have degrees in any of these things, right? But there's a specific set of teachings called the 5 Buddha families. And they're really, I think, our jewel. Already we've mentioned so many jewels, but the Buddha families are really this main, totally unique thing. You can really only experience them at Naropa University or through Karuna training. And that's what someone had told me. Like, if you want to do this deeply, go to Karuna training.
Yeah, well, I do feel that the 5 Buddha family is like the cornerstone of Karuna training. But can you tell us what the 5 Buddha families are?
Yeah, so they are an element-based indigenous system of knowing that actually comes from the Bön tradition, which is before Buddhism came to Tibet. The indigenous practices, which are still present and still there, come from Bön, and they were incorporated into Tibetan Buddhism. Um, they're very deep. They can go in so many different ways of understanding the nature of reality and relationships, and they also can be quite pragmatic in a way. So we do these really kind of wild, sometimes we joke they're like psychedelics without the drugs, like these postures and glasses, and I do these experientials that really help us feel into the energy underneath our emotions and thoughts. Um, and it's also pragmatically super helpful for people to understand ourselves and each other in a very different way, in a much more elemental way rather than personality wise.
Yeah, so is that mainly what you took from Karuna?
It was definitely one of the biggest things I took from Karuna. It was interesting. I basically was ready to sign on just based on the 5 Buddha families, but I did go to an introductory weekend, and I already started to see in that weekend where we didn't do the Buddha families how much it would help what I was already doing in my work, which was a lot of facilitation and teaching. I had started to branch into coaching folks more one-on-one, integrative process around projects, and the ways that we communicate and give each other feedback in my groups, especially writing. All of that went much deeper than it had before.
Miriam, can you say more about how Karuna improved your feedback?
Yeah, so many pieces that have already been spoken to before, like compassionate exchange and intensity capacity and radical honesty. And I think specifically what we call microscopic truth, which is finding a way to be very pithy and direct and clear about profound emotional experiences, which is hard for a lot of us, right? We have lots of things to say. So, how can we really pith it down, distilling the essential information for someone when we're giving them feedback, especially as people are, as Ina had said, often sharing things that are quite personal or vulnerable or interrelational. And that's also true, especially in my writing groups and in some of the other programs I offer, where people are sharing things that are quite vulnerable. So we want to give them feedback, but also support them while we're being honest.
Yeah, but what's the basis of that feedback?
Yeah, so the basis is really compassionate exchange. And what happens in compassionate exchange is that we're really tuned into our senses, that the sensory information we're receiving from outside, I say outside in quotes because it's both outside and inside of us, as well as our senses inside, like what are we sensing inside of ourselves, gives us this primary information. I was not really in touch with that well. I was pretty disconnected from my body, and I was sort of using something intuitively from a teacher previously that was similar, but the way that I can now kind of go inside and be quiet and find, a tension in my neck, or find an opening in my heart and feel that, or offer images, is so much stronger than it used to be. And that's helped all of my relationships grow. So not just I'm emphasizing teaching, but teaching and facilitation, but also, as other people have mentioned, like family, my relationship with my spouse, my relationships with nature, right? Because the Buddha families are an elemental practice. My relationship with the elements in nature has also gotten much richer.
So that's the main thing you took from Karuna then.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say that is the main thing I took from Karuna, is this sense of deep richness and growth in all of my relationships. And the Buddha families are a part of that. So are all the other pieces everyone else has talked about today.
Yeah, so it sounds like the teachings of Karuna have really enriched your connections with your clients and students, your spouse, with nature, and really foster meaningful relationships and communal healing. I do want to thank everyone here for sharing their stories. It's a real testament to how Karuna teachings and practices have really brought a profound impact on us in helping us navigate intense emotions, enhancing our personal and professional lives through connections, and building a supportive and resilient community. Should we go to questions then? I know we're a small group here, but are there any questions from those listening?
Yeah, and those questions can be personal, they can be logistical, any questions that come up about things that we've either said or things that we haven't said are welcome. Yeah, Carol.
Hi, I'm wondering where the residential retreats take place.
A place called Ari Bode, which is in Tehachapi, California. So near LA, near Los Angeles. There's a retreat center there.
What,
And
will you tell me the name of it again, please? Ari Bode, is that what it's called?
Ari Bode, ARIBHOD.
I see it in the chat. All
Yeah.
right.
Mhm.
And they are, how long?
The
The-
retreats are about a week long.
Oh, okay.
And they offer a chance for us to really go deep together. Ari Bode is a really lovely location with a lot of powerful practice energy. And we also offer, we get people in touch with each other for carpooling and other things because that's the nature of retreats. We go to these kind of semi-remote places in order to go deep with each other, but we'll also support you in getting there.
So are we going to have a session where we talk about what our relationship is to what you're doing? Are you going to talk about that now?
What your
There's two
relationship
of us. There's two of us who are not you.
Yeah.
And I assume that we've come here to find out about how this can enhance our particular lives.
Yeah. If you'd be willing to share, that would be lovely to hear. Yeah, what brings you?
So I live on Yuki land. I don't care about my pronouns. I manifest as a she, but I don't care. Generally, I practice she-ness. This is Yuki land, and the Yukis are still here. I live on an Indian reservation, and we have Yukis, Wailakis, Pomos, Little Lakes, but concows, just a lot of Northern California tribes. So there's a lot of suffering here. But it makes this place, it gives this place a sense of authenticity that you don't find in places where only white people live. Because this California, and there's a lot of Northern California has a lot of sort of redneck energy. I've been a student, I was a student of Chogyam Trungpa's in the 70s. So I've been practicing for a long time, 50 years. I had a meditation group here, I don't know, about 15 years ago that I led for about 5 years, and I realized that I was limited as to what I could offer people here. A lot of people, came and learned meditation, and oh, isn't that nice? A lot of sort of mostly young hippie pot growers. They weren't hippies, but pot growers, because that's what we do here, or we did here. And I was talking to Priscilla Hinman, and she's a doctor, and she's from here, and she does Karuna training. I don't know if you probably know her. And we were talking, she said what in her life as far as, because I met her at the Shambhala Center in Berkeley originally, but what she found the most useful focus in Shambhala was Karuna training, and I never really explored that before. I mean, I've had probably everything you've talked about, I've had as practices and teachings, but never like focused in this particular way. So it seemed like Karuna training, I don't know if I want a certificate. I don't know if I want to go through like years. I mean, I'm old now, years of the program. But I would like to have something that I can coalesce around that would be helpful to people here, because somebody keeps asking me, "You gonna do your meditation group again?" And I feel very, very unsure of what I have to offer, and I would like to get more confidence in that. The crash of Shambhala was pretty unfortunate to me and my connection and my practice, although the Sangha is something that is extremely dear to me. And I love it that several teachers have said that the Buddha of the future, the Maitreya Buddha, is not going to be a guy, it's going to be the Sangha, and I feel that very strongly. So Tehachapi is, it's not that far away, but it's not going to like Colorado or Vermont or something. So I think that's my story.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Really appreciate yeah, your journey, like so much respect for your journey. And I really appreciate you saying, like, I have done probably most of these practices or touched on these things in other ways. Because Karuna definitely doesn't have, like, we don't have the corner of the market on compassion by any means. And it's so important that we recognize like what we're bringing as well, the richness that you're bringing, that you're describing. And I also appreciate how you're saying that possibly Karuna could coalesce or sort of concentrate some of these things together, which is, I think, a lot how people experience Karuna. I actually heard someone joke that Shambhala died, which I say with utmost respect, like it's gone through a transition, it's gone through still going through a deep transition, and went to Karuna, like sort of went to heaven. So for them, it really helped them distill and get very concentrated in on what was essential, and for them had been missing in a lot of sanghas, in a lot of different communities, which was this intensity capacity, ability to talk and be with emotions and energy with each other. So I'm not saying that means we're better, but of course we are connected to Shambhala in terms of lineage originally, and Chogyam Trungpa. And so some of those same core teachings come through, but in a way that weaves into the energy of emotions and wisdom as well.
Well, I would like to be able to offer that energy to the community here without, and I feel just so much ambiguity of energy. Yeah.
And Karuna training is often, as you've been hearing today, often peopled by people who really like helping others. And how can we, as Karen Wessel Magala says, like, how can we be helpful without being a nuisance? In one of her books, like that's the former title of one of her books, like how to really be of, as you were saying, I'm not entirely sure what I have to offer. So getting really clear about what it is that we have to offer this world and how to best do that. And we definitely, not everybody has to do something with what they get from Karuna, but a lot of us wind up applying it directly or indirectly.
Well, I discovered that, Trungpa, when he first, started teaching students, he just completely emphasized, shamatha meditation. And so we all did a lot of that. And I've been away from the Sangha for about 40 years, although I do like to connect down in the Bay. But then I realized that just teaching people how to meditate is a very, very limited in a situation where people are not particularly interested in Buddhism or that particular practice. And I would like to offer people more, but that's just what I know quite well. That makes sense. I can see you nodding. So I'm not
Absolutely. Definitely makes sense. Meditation is core to Karuna and also has its, I think all of us have had conversations with each other and the faculty, especially about where it has its limitations too.
Well, I was just in a group of Sangha people who were all talking about their trauma, and there's a lot of trauma going on, and how just the shamatha meditation does not address trauma-informed people. And it's like, okay, I get it, it's like, what do you, I had a guy come who was a very close friend who's now committed suicide, but I come to my group who was schizophrenic, and it's like, well, he's out there, but I don't feel like I really was offering him a useful thing in his life. I guess it's nice to have a community that cares, but he did eventually kill himself. It actually was doing really well when he did. So I don't know how I can learn how to communicate through the style of Karuna without doing about a zillion hours of program. I mean, I don't say give me the quick and dirty, but give me the quick and dirty.
Yeah, I mean, the key, first of all, just again, thank you for sharing that story. And I'm really happy too for other faculty to step in. I don't mean to keep, I'm having a conversation with Carol, but we can all be having a conversation with Carol, is what I mean to say. Just really honoring the vulnerability and rawness of what you shared, and having been also someone who's been in community with people who have gone in that direction, and just how intense that is. Unfortunately, fortunately, there's no quick and dirty, because it's practice. Like, we have to practice together. But for me, the key difference is, and I don't say this in a salesy way, I say it, and it's true of other groups now that I'm a part of too, but not quite with the same emotional intelligence as Karuna, but we have to do it together. We have to practice together. And so, we could, like Melissa Moore wrote a book, the director of Karuna Training, we could just say, go read her book, The Diamonds Within Us. And you'll get the quick and dirty, I mean, not dirty, like you'll get the quick pithy teaching. It's the practice that really matters.
What's the name of Melissa's book? I've known her like from back in the day, but I didn't really keep up with her.
Diamonds Within Us, Melissa Moore. Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is I just want to say, it's totally beautiful, and really does download a lot of the things that we've talked about today, including anecdotes, but it's the being together. That's
is there a possibility to do retreats without, signing up for the whole enchilada?
as of right now, what we are encouraging people to do is, if you're coming to the first retreat, to commit to that first 9 months, because we're building a cohort, and that's really where we learn, is by growing together. But what that would mean is just 9 months. And you could try that out and see. We're opening it up so that folks can come to the online groups if they just want to come to the online groups to try them out. But in terms of retreat, it's important to have that structure of commitment together for a bit.
Okay.
Yeah,
I understand.
Yeah, totally.
So I assume there's a Karuna Sangha in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area.
We have numerous Karuna Sanghas, really, like mini Sanghas, depending.
I have a fairly good access to the San Francisco Bay Area.
Yeah, great. Absolutely. That's one of our strongholds for sure. Yeah. Thank you so much. I really, again, appreciate bringing your, like, here's what I've got. How does this fit? Does it fit? And what could it do? Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. I want to pass it off to another faculty member, check in with Abby. Yeah.
I think Abby just unmuted, so maybe she's got a question.
Thank you, Carol, for opening up that space to just kind of, see, is this the right program? Thank you to everyone here for sharing as well, kind of your stories and logistics. I am in education, trying to leave education. Being super successful with it, but so I actually, I'll speak plainly. I have been very successful with it within transitioning it, evolving it, and becoming a better human within this space. Just through practices and leaving it for a bit and coming back to it to, check out, litmus test it, see where I'm at now, see how the practice has really influenced my life and showed me the spaciousness I have for others to hold that, because I was overwhelmed with COVID and teaching middle school, and I was one of the only Spanish speakers in the classroom, so helping students who were newcomers to this country in a pandemic was a lot. When you're their liaison, you're their therapist, you're their translator, you're and I had to grade them on top of it. So it just wasn't appropriate role. And I wanted to get further training, so I felt equipped. Carol, I think you have a lot more to offer than you're giving yourself credit for. I can tell you that already. And so, I do tend to be a little bit especially when time and money is concerned for me, because I have taken a lot of time off of work um, to do the practice, to do solitary retreat, to do find teachers and sit with teachers who I have, and time in Nepal, and just those who seek continue seeking, and just I'm finally at a place of just one of my teachers gave me the sage advice of, if I were you, I would just right now be open and follow what excited your senses, and allow that to kind of reveal the path to you. And then for me, that was beautiful advice, but then I can go cast my net so wide that I lack clarity and direction. And what has always spoken, the title of your program, contemplative psychology, is exactly what interests me. And I can become outcome based because there is time and money commitment for me. And so, it's spacious enough where I could continue to work. And, Carol said it as well. I'm familiar with a lot of these practices. So I don't know how much more in depth it would help. I don't know how much a certificate versus a degree would help. I know, Dal, you said you're going to go into social work, and I know I'm going to be a lifelong learner. So, I'm accepting all of these things, and I want to make sure make sure there is no make sure, but do the best I can to commit my time and financial energy toward the program that makes the most sense for the growth and step stage where I'm at now. I was very much geared toward an Ayurvedic training, just to the lifestyle I wanted to create for myself, and some illnesses I had in Nepal, and seeing those practices really influenced my health, and some sage advice I got, and Carol, maybe this is useful, it helped me, was, anything worthwhile takes a while. So I also know that. um, you know, I don't know. So is there a question within all of that rambling? I guess, what one can do with a certificate, is does that mean anything? Having a certificate in this, and uh, yeah, whatever you can parse out from what I've shared.
Abby, I'll just take a stab at that last part. One of the motivations for getting the master's in social work is that I will take the contemplative psychology training piece of that, and I plan to go into therapy, so have group therapies and be able to incorporate those practices to help people, and then also have that therapeutic support, for people who may need more than a non-therapeutic environment. And so for me, the certificate helps with that career path, right? It's something you put on your resume, but it also gives me personally the confidence that I have these skills, I've learned these skills, and I can share these skills with others. And so that's how I intend to use the credentialing side of Karuna, is to take it into my new career path as additional skills to help people. I'm not sure if that helps, but just throwing that out there.
Yeah, and that's kind of how I saw this more as like additional skills. As far as like, yeah, going into the therapy world, you need to get credentialed.
Yeah.
Would it be appropriate for like chaplaincy work or something of that regard? Or would you have to get further?
I did an internship with hospice, and in that hospice internship, I actually worked with the chaplain corps 50% of the time. And I would say that it was really very helpful in helping families grieve and go through bereavement, and even in the preparation of it. And that working with the chaplains, they had interest in it, in the skill sets that I had, or, you know, the knowledge and the approaches we had. So I definitely see a lot of ways to incorporate it into that world as well. Definitely.
I have an interview set up to possibly live for some time with the Upaya Center.
That's great. I think for me, I don't know if this was necessarily a question, but I heard you talk a lot about kind of being a practitioner and contemplative psychology. And I feel for me, you know, it has helped like bridge the part of me that is really focused on practice and the part of me that has to or lives in the real world. I think I went through this big oscillation for a long time. Like I want to be off on retreat and my life isn't supporting that. And I feel like my life is taking me away from practice. And this has been a really good bridge for those two things and kind of extending that out in a way that is really about embodying compassion. And I think you know, what Dell was speaking to is it forms this basis of engaging that feeds into anything that you're going to do, and really kind of, again, that resilience and the capacity to be open for others and authentic with yourself too, and see your own intrinsic health and wisdom and other people's intrinsic health and wisdom. And it's just, you know, that there's a magical quality. And I also heard you talk about outcome based, and I have really strong feelings about this because I find the magic of Karuna is the fact that it isn't outcome based, that you're going into this non-linear space that is tapping into something that is so much bigger. You do a small experiential and you can go to like into experiences that are indescribable and rarely exist in the world today. So I kind of, it does have outcomes, but I really value the fact that it isn't outcome based, that it's experiential and nonlinear and has like, yeah, I keep saying magic, but there is a magical quality to it.
Yeah, and just to kind of add to that, my experience of Karuna, you know, particularly when I compare my experience with being a member of a Buddhist community since 2007, that's when I formally started meditating, is that I love listening to talks and kind of the learning about concepts and about Buddhism. And yes, we meditated. That was the main practice. But the difference with Karuna is that there are many practices that that this is called Karuna training. And there's a reason for that, because it is training. We continuously do the practices. Like maybe we listen to a talk and we get the download of information, and immediately after there's an experiential that we do. So we actually experience the teachings, right? So, and that's a body, it's more very much about embodiment practice. And so you actually experience it, not in your head, like you don't have this intellectual understanding, but it's deeper. And that I found really profound in Karuna. And that's how we get to apply it to our lives, because it's in our body now, right? It's not just in our head. So I found that really helpful in terms of how Karuna teaches is a training, and it's just been our experience of it.
And Abby, I have yet another angle if you'd like it. Yeah, thank you so much. And just to say, like, as someone who I have a bachelor's in anthropology and French, that's my higher education. And I say that because I so rarely directly apply either of those, right? And I have gone through many, many training programs outside of, formal systems. And now I think mostly get by on being an expert in the field, quote unquote, right? Like the 20 years of teaching that I've done, I can hearken to that, and that helps me get gigs and connect with people. But just as somebody who took a completely alternative path, that's nothing but certifications from places that may or may not matter in the outer world. Like may or may not, you may run into somebody who's like, oh my God, you did Karuna training. That's amazing. I'm so glad that's on your resume. Or it may just be on your resume as a thing that you did. And other people will be like, okay, certification, and I don't know what this is. So I just want to speak to that kind of outer layer of it, that it's given me a lot of the inner that I think people are addressing. And I certainly at one point was like, do I want to go back and do a social work degree or do a chaplaincy, right? Like something like chaplaincy that has an official title on it. Absolutely have looked at the UPIA program. And for me, this is not advice, it's for me. What I found is by doing enough trainings, I had put together enough confidence and structure to have an integral sense of what is it that I offer, like what's my purpose, basically. And I'm only now doing trainings that help support that purpose. So I've limited, I'm 48. So now I've, started to pin back. So I'm not doing as many trainings so I can get really clear and solid about my purpose while still learning new things. So I hear that. I think you're, in a way, what I hear is a quest, right? Of like, what's the core thing, or what are the core things? And I'd say if Karuna resonates with that, then let it be a part of your quest. And the only other thing I want to add is the Buddha families that I mentioned. I know that a lot of the practices may resonate with things you've done already, doing them in an embodied way, as Naoko was saying, and with others, as we were all saying, and also doing them with the Buddha families. So doing them infused with these postures and practices, which I think brings a lot of the magic that Ina's talking about, is very rare and adds a whole layer, not just a layer, but a whole flavor to Karuna that's completely different from everything else. And it's not a degree. It's true. It's not a degree or a license. Yeah. So it's just good to name that and honor that too.
What is the schedule for this particular cohort? If we were to join the cohort?
Naoko, do you have that pulled up?
The first residential retreat starts on May 31st. It's a 7-day retreat. And then after that, you have that's followed by 2 online courses. And those are monthly online courses. You meet for 3 hours every 3rd Saturday of the month. And that's phase 1. And that goes from May of this year to January of next year.
So that would be the commitment, if that would be the 9-month commitment.
That's right, yeah.
And the retreat is basically introductory.
Yes, it's the foundations. You learn the foundations of contemplative psychology.
Okay. So you're going to send that out or make that available for exploration?
Those are on the website. They're also, we can ask the person who sends out the recordings to also include the links to that information in the email too.
I guess, is it the same faculty leading the retreat as it is the Saturday course for phase 1?
The first residential retreat, it will be Melissa and Miriam. And then, Del, are you going to be part of that? Right? Yeah. And then I think Katie is also continuity. I said there before.
And then Naoko and I and Melissa are doing a lot of the lead faculty work. And then we have continuity with Del and Katie. Katie's not able to be here today. throughout the first 9 months. So we rotate. We team teach. So we team teach and rotate together.
And then are there scholarships available for any part of phase 1, phase 2?
Yeah. Yep. You can reach out.
Yeah.
I don't think I qualify as a white woman.
Worth an ask. It's worth an ask.
Yeah, and there are programs too.
I'm a white woman who works with marginalized populations.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The so as Naoko mentioned, the retreat is coming up. The opening retreat for the program starts at the end of May. We also have a few other programs coming up. So I'm just going to put those in the chat, and those will also come out in the email, follow-up email. An in-person program in Albuquerque that goes into the 5 Buddha families and the mandala. And then Melissa Moore, again, the director, is offering a program on May 7th about finding a soulful bond and building community of love. So both of those are also on the website. The one on May 7th online is free. The one on May 3rd in Albuquerque has a cost. I don't know off the top of my head what it is, but if you're able to go to Albuquerque, you can go to the website and find out that information. That will be a really lovely way to get a flavor of that specific flavor of our teachings.
The May 3rd, you don't do hybrid though. It's in Chicago area, so.
Yeah, no, unfortunately. Oh, Abby, I'm just north of you. Great. There are some things, part of the reason why we don't do everything online is that there are some things that are just better done in person, and that includes the Buddha family work.
So, okay, so Melissa's doing the May 7th. Is there any cost to your online application?
No,
There's no application fee.
we're just past time, so we'll close soon, but there are while we're together, any other questions? These have been great questions and discussion. Thank you both for bringing yourselves, honestly, radical honesty already. I will say too that we have mentioned the grad program, and so there's a third year where we directly support people in offering those practices to groups. The second year offers support in you presenting practices and sharing them with individuals. And that has been one of my best as I say, I have numerous certifications. That's been one of the best trainings I've had for how to really actually hold space for people. How to really hold it, especially when the shit hits the fan. Honestly.
Which one was that? Did you say?
That's the third year of Karuna training. It's the grad year, which we haven't emphasized because we're basically just talking about the basic cohort, the first 2 years. But
So the grad program offers a graduate degree? Or no.
no, unfortunately, no.
Okay.
We're accredited for CEUs, right? We have California Marriage and Family Therapist CEUs, but we're not accredited with the university, so we can't offer a degree or a license. Okay. Well, thank you everyone so much. You are welcome to reach out at any time. There's a contact email on the website. You can reach out, and if there's a specific person you want to chat with, you can say, hey, I attended this program and I want to reach out to Naoko or Ina, or I want to ask some more further questions. Thank you, Naoko and Del and Ina. It's been really lovely to do this with you.
It's been great. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.